Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the T3 podcast. My name is On God Paul. Super excited to be your host for this third edition of our podcast series. And on today's podcast, we will be focused in on our A series for the 2021 model year compared to our Android competitors. And later on, in the week after, we will be focused in directly on A series versus Motorola, since Motorola has some very specific devices that we'd love to get in depth with. And obviously, with LG's exit from the mobile business, we want to really make sure we focus in on the competitor that has the most devices in that similar device series. So, a lot of great content along the way. And we are so thankful that you all continue to tune in to this podcast. So I'm also joined today by Lawrence Coyle. And Lawrence, it is a tradition now to actually have you here. So how you doing, sir?
Man, I'm good. Wow, 3 episodes already. I wonder if we're going to get renewed for episode 4. I'm
Where
doing
does
well,
the
though.
time go, Lawrence? I don't know either. I hope we get renewed. And team, that's up to you to make sure that you continue to tune in so that we stay viable and that our voices continue to be heard. So that's up to you, Lawrence, but I'm right there with you. We want to make sure that we get renewed for episode 4 all the way to episode 24 and 34 and so on and so forth.
I hear you.
Absolutely. So, team, let's go ahead and get started. I think the biggest thing that we want to discuss is LG's exit from the mobile business. Of course, LG has been that Android competitor that has been right there with us for many, many generations since we started that Galaxy lineup and since we started to really see this sort of divide between what performance really is, what features and benefits really are. And of course, right before Pixel came into the business and we started to have another Android competitor. So now that LG is leaving the business, those devices might still be in circulation. We might still have customers that are purchasing these devices at a bit of a decrease in price with some sort of spiffs in our carrier doors. Let's lean into some devices here. So the first device we want to talk about is our LG V60. And this is a very premium device that was released last year. So it is a little over a year old now, but of course, that is the latest in premium traditional smartphone technology that LG did release. High resolution display, great camera, great battery life, and great performance. But what we really want to do is tie our features and benefits from our top end A series, like our A52 and even our A42, directly to this device that fits in that $400 to $500 range, depending on the carrier that we are upgrading our customers in. So let's start with that screen resolution. Of course, we talk about screen tech all the time when it comes to LG's full vision technology, our Super AMOLED, or our dynamic AMOLED technology. But what is the real benefit for our customers? And there are a lot of tech blogs and YouTubers out there that say a display that's approximately 5 to maybe 7 inches, it really doesn't matter. Once you get past 1080p, the display resolution doesn't make a difference. Now, that's not me. I'm not quoting that. That is directly from a lot of YouTubers and bloggers out there. So, really, let's go ahead and start this off, Lawrence. I have a question for you. We talk about display technology all the time. We talk about display resolution and LG on their V60 and also on their LG Stylo 6. These are very high resolution displays. So, how would you say they compare to our screen technologies that have exactly the similar type of resolution on paper? How do we stand apart? What would you say?
Man, first and foremost, yes, display technology to a point is as big as it's going to get, right? But really the difference for us is when you pick up that device, hold both of them in your hands and look at them is really where you see the absolute difference. I mean, if everything was equal and they were all made the same and they all had the same type of screen, you would still on ours see a brighter screen, better contrast, better details in everything that you viewed on that device. So to a point, I get where the blogs are going, but to me personally, when you look at the devices, hold them side by side, you'll really notice ours is much brighter and there's a lot more detail.
Yeah, I feel that for sure, Lawrence. I think that's important for us to really focus in on tech specs, on paper, and through all of the research that our customers are doing, they'll most likely see the similarity in display technology. they might not care too much about LG leaving the business and see the price tag, and they most likely will try to develop a sort of relationship where they can adopt this device and really start to understand the benefits of it. But what we need to do is do something very similar to what Lawrence was talking about. Yes, the resolution might be similar, the display technology might be similar as well, but our displays will be brighter, the color will be better as well. And when it comes to taking pictures and recording videos, you want that higher resolution, but you also want that better display technology that's brighter and more vibrant so that when you take pictures and you consume content, that it will look the absolute best it possibly can. So that's great. And leading away from the display, we get into the camera as well. When we look at the V60, we have a very high resolution 64 megapixel camera. And as we know, LG does really try to pin us quite a bit in the past. Every time we release a high resolution camera, a great display, or a great battery, they do the exact same thing to try to keep up with us. But this is where we really draw the line in display technology again. How often do you take a high resolution picture, then run home, display it on your TV or monitor, and then sit back and be like, oh, that's an amazing image? It really doesn't happen too much. Our customers and consumers take pictures and then they view that resolution and that quality on the display itself to really see what they took a picture of, so that maybe they can go back and take another or really enjoy the moment. That's exactly why our display technology and camera in unison makes such a difference, because you can take a great picture and then view it on the absolute best display technology on our A42 and our A52 5G seamlessly and with continuity. That's a great benefit. Now, Lawrence, another question that comes up in my mind, and this is something that I've been sort of wrestling around with a little bit as well, is performance. We have the Snapdragon processors, we have the 765G, we have these lower end, sort of mid range processors that are still immensely powerful. When we are talking about comparing a device like the Stylo 6 to our A42, maybe even our A32, how do you think we compare performance across these two devices that have very similar performance specs?
When I look at it, we've already used some of these processors, maybe, a little bit in the past. So we know that they run well. We know the durability of them. Plus, when you're looking at, gosh, this would be the second gen of the A series, maybe even the, second or possibly the third time we've used this, type of a processor. We know what to expect. We know what we're getting ourselves into with it. We demand that performance. We demand, that type of quality, and we know we're going to get it with Qualcomm. Saying that though, when you look at what the V60 has as far as their processor, is it bigger than ours? Absolutely, but they're also paying more to get that type of processor for the same or a little bit less. We're getting this, what is it, the 750G, I believe it is, the Qualcomm for the A52, and the 765, or I'm sorry, the 750 also for the A42. We're also getting it at a much lower price, even though the performance is going to be roughly the same. For most applications that you would ever want to run, our price point is really what comes down to being a lot lower. So you're getting a great processor, you're getting, a great price at the end of the day, and really ultimately for the customer, it's an all-inclusive experience that they're really going to enjoy using our phone.
Fantastic. I'm completely in line with that as well. And those are all really great points to make. Because of LG's exit from the business, we are seeing their premium devices fall shorter into some mid-tier pricing. And that's why we're talking about this. That's why we're doing this comparison and this discussion on this podcast about performance and processor versus processor. Because usually what we do is we talk about our Snapdragon 888 processor, the absolute apex of performance on a mobile device, and we compare and contrast it to Apple's devices and some other the Android devices out there that might have similar processors. But in this case, we have that 750G that Lawrence mentioned. We have that 765G as well when it comes to some of these technologies out there with our A series. And what we really need to do is talk about how 750G and 765G are still immensely powerful. And when you tie it all together with some of our other features and benefits across our A series, it's going to be a better solution. And you're going to have that longevity of software updates and the security updates that our customers need, that the LG V60 and Stylus 6 just won't be able to do for much longer. So, a lot of great points, team. We took you through the display technology discussion. We walked through the camera quickly. Of course, we went through performance. Now, let's go ahead and move into some of our other Android competitors. And the big one that comes up is Google Pixel with their Pixel 4a 5G and even their Pixel 4a traditional LTE model. This device was expertly priced as well. And of course, we had some of those Google experts and individuals that really stand by this type of display technology and those types of innovations that Google has as well and continues to drive. The first thing that comes to mind with Google Pixel for me is going to be that stock Android experience. And I remember when Google first came out with their stock Android experience, they were really marketing it, and customers were really loving that type of experience with less bloatware and less issues. Now, what we did is we moved away from TouchWiz. Not that TouchWiz was bad per se. I'm still a huge TouchWiz fan, Lawrence. I'm sure you are as well. But when it comes to One UI, we really move towards a more stock Android experience, but we still provide what the customer needs. And that is something that's simplistic, efficient, easy to use, and still immensely powerful. And that is exactly what we need to tie directly into. Gone are the days where stock Android is king. We have the latest Android updates, but we also have One UI tied into our ecosystem all the way from A to Z and also within our NCME products, which of course means our Galaxy Watch 3 and our Tab S7 and Tab S7 Plus. So that's the first point that we can really hit on when we're doing a comparison between our Pixel 4a 5G and our A32 all the way to our A52 devices as well. And when it comes down to it, the internal performance, the Qualcomm Snapdragon 765G is the exact processor that's actually in the Pixel 4a 5G. This device is designed in mind for this mid-range processor that also has 5G capabilities. So when it comes to performance, they're going to be equally matched. And when it comes to internal storage, 128 gigabytes across this device series, as we've discussed, and it also has a kit of lenses. So if we go down into the actual specifications, which of course we don't want to do too much because we have some great content that will do it for us, we look at 3 lenses on the Google Pixel 4a 5G versus 5 lenses on the A52 5G, and even 6 lenses in some cases compared to some of the devices that we have released in the past. And I say all this just so that we can understand that we are the pioneers of the kit of lenses. We have always had an ultra wide, a zoom lens, a wide main lens. We are the ones that have always had this great experience. And I think that brings up another question for me, Lawrence. When it comes to cameras and again, tech specs, you compare 12 megapixels to 5 megapixels and 16, 48, all of these numbers out there, they all seem very similar. But how do you think our A52 or A42 match up to the kit of lenses that the Pixel 4a 5G has?
No, it's a I love the question. And my first response whenever a customer's ever come up and, talked about the Pixel and how they should get it, my first response back to them is, have you ever owned a non-carrier device? And they always look at me crazy, like, well, what do you mean? Well, have you always bought your device strictly from the carrier, taken it home, activated it on whatever carrier? Well, yeah. So you've never used something without the carrier supported software? Well, no. Well, then Google Android, stock Android, might not be the right solution for you only it is so, because it's so open, it's so different. And I know it sounds crazy to say it, but where we might rely on our own messaging app, well, Google uses their own and it's their own everything. So it's kind of like, how Apple puts everybody into the Apple ecosystem. Well, Google tries to do the same thing to their own ecosystem, which again isn't bad. But if you are, say, someone older and not used to maybe the technology of cell phones, it's different. It is a different feel, and you don't have the carrier to fall back on. But specifically, when you're looking at the cameras, the lenses and things like that, yes, they match somewhat up to be very competitive. But the end result is, what are you going to get the best picture on? What are you going to take to to get those, perfect colors, the perfect, modes that we have in our cameras to actually support someone who's new to photography. If you look at something like, a single take or something along those lines, those are there to really help, uh, to me, beginning photographers or beginning picture takers to really experience the fun of having a good camera on your phone, can truly be. And I can't talk enough, but when you say, to me, when you talk about these two devices and you're looking specifically even at the A52, it's all about the 120 hertz resolution. I mean, having that type of that feel, the fluidness of the device, the way it moves, the smoothness, it, to me means everything in the world. So for me, this is a no-brainer, but really make sure your customers understand that there is a difference with regular, carrier backed or even Samsung One UI versus just an open Android platform. It's a different experience.
I love all of those points. And again, I think it really does adhere itself to the policy that we stand by. And that is making sure we provide the absolute best solution for our customers at every standpoint. And it is a very unique point, Lawrence, for us to also talk about how different carriers tend to put different applications and different softwares on their devices. So even though something might be stock Android, or you might have LG's operating system or Motorola's, it really ends up being the similar type of experience, but then you get a Verizon application here. You might get some sort of setting that is enabled specifically for hotspot or cellular networking. So that does change the experience. And again, Lawrence, that is perfect because it ties back to why Samsung and why we want to sell our ecosystem and our devices over the competitor. And moving into the camera experience, yes, they are very similar. You might have similar megapixel cameras as well, but again, tie it back to our display technology, tie it back to how megapixels aren't all the craze anymore. Yes, you get a higher resolution image, but in our A42 and also our A52 5G, we have amazing high resolution cameras that are also paired with great technologies such as single take, space zoom, and some of these really high level, flagship level camera features, but in the A series. Set the precedent of what these devices mean and how they're no longer just the mid and mass tier. And these devices are really jumping up to a next generation of category. And we're super excited to be talking about it. That's the easiest way for us to tie back in to what the Pixel 4a 5G has to offer. We also have larger displays, and having one additional camera from 3 to 4 on the A42 5G versus the Pixel 4a, or even jumping up to 5 lenses on the A52 5G, means that you get another lens for a different moment in your customer's life. That will make the biggest benefit for our customers, as long as we're asking the right questions and we're doing that top down selling approach that we've talked about on previous podcasts. Now, let's go ahead and move over to OnePlus. And man, OnePlus really came in aggressively. Don't you think, Lawrence, when OnePlus first came around?
It's funny. They went from nowhere to now a really big name. And I know, like, companies like Huawei and, some of the other Chinese brands that are, out there. OnePlus was the one that just kind of stuck and really made their devices look great, for not only the cost, but the look and the feel and the capability of the devices. Yeah, they came out of nowhere and really have started to make a good name for themselves.
Absolutely. It really brings back those memories, and it can be really difficult for us as Samsung employees and Samsung ambassadors and also field sales managers to be in that situation where we look at a OnePlus device and be like, wow, this really is a good looking phone, and it has the specs to match it up. It even has a little bit of a presence and some sort of brand loyalists that are developing out there as well. Now, whether that's changed in the recent time or not, or OnePlus has started to fizzle a bit or become a little complacent and stagnant, it really doesn't matter because, again, we don't want to lose to these smaller Android competitors. And we also want to find a common place where we can continue to compare and contrast and position our features. So the OnePlus Nord 10 5G is the device that we're going to be discussing here today because it does have a great type of tie-in with our current lineup of A series. So let's start with that display resolution. Again, we're always going to focus on that because if there's anything that we've always had a foot up on, that's going to be our display tech. The OnePlus Nord 10 5G has a 6.49 inch, so about a 6.5 inch full HD LCD display. Now, I know you have that small little grin on your face. I have the same grin right now. LCD, it's a good technology. It's similar to TFT and some of the other tech that we've talked about again on previous podcasts, but we have amazing Infinity O displays and even OLED technology on some of our devices. And of course, we have that 120 hertz refresh rate that Lawrence discussed with our A52 5G. So not only do you get a similar display resolution to what the OnePlus Nord 10 5G has, but you also get that display vibrancy, you get the smoothness. So we have a leg up quite easily in that experience. And display resolution and refresh rate has really become more than just for the power users, the gamers, the individuals out there that are consuming a lot of media, even in the interface and social networking, and really even moving through settings and taking notes on your phone. You have a easier and more efficient experience when the display isn't lagging behind and everything is instantaneous. Refresh rate will make your phone snappier, more than just the processor will. So that's what our device has to offer versus the OnePlus Nord 10 5G. Moving into the camera, yes, the OnePlus Nord 10 5G actually has 5 lenses on the rear, and we see resolutions up to 64 megapixels on this device. So that means it can actually capture images in 8K resolution, which of course our A52 5G and even our A42 can also do with a 48 megapixel and a 64 megapixel camera. So we get into the tech specs just a little bit, team, to understand that a 32 or maybe even a 33 megapixel image will get you to that 8K category, which we know because of our 8K video snap feature. But that also means that we have a very similar tie-in with display technology again. So I know you've heard me say it, but of course, let's hit it on the head one more time. Display resolution, display technology will always pair back in with the camera tech because a great looking picture will only look as good as it possibly can if you have an amazing display resolution to back it up, because you're not going to run home and throw it up on the TV right away for our individuals who want to take the absolute best pictures possible. Moving into the processor, the OnePlus Nord 10 5G has a Snapdragon 690, which when you're comparing to a 750G or 765G, again, on our A52 or A42, it's going to be quite a bit faster than what the OnePlus Nord 10 5G has. It does have the last generation of internal processors that Qualcomm came out with, and that also means that this device isn't inherently focused on 5G technology. Even though it does support that type of cellular network and radio, it doesn't have the versatility of battery optimization and speed generalization that the 750 and 765G have, which allow it to not only be immensely powerful, but also easier on the battery as well. So that is another point that we can continue to focus on. Battery life is going to be another big point. Of course, a lot of competitors have fast charging technology now, and we have 25-watt fast charging. We also have 15-watt fast charging, and our competitor OnePlus Nord will have a very similar tech as well. However, when we factor in all the other devices and performance features, we always stand out when it comes to OnePlus Nord 10 5G. How do you feel about that, Lawrence?
Spot on. and and I only say that because to me battery life is like anymore. It's really the size of the battery doesn't matter as much anymore. The how fast it charges necessarily doesn't really matter all that much anymore. To me, the true test is the overall battery length of time. So if I know I can use and abuse my phone for 8 solid hours, I'm great with that. And if it takes me 30 minutes to get 80% of a charge, I'm fine with that too. But if I have a battery that will only get me to maybe 5 and 6 hours, that's when I kind of start to maybe I don't want to say stressed, but it's like, oh, maybe I should stop using my phone as much, or I shouldn't watch this movie on this flight because when I land, I'm not going to have any power to use navigation or anything like that. So to me, I don't want to have to worry about things like that. I would just rather know that, hey, no matter what I throw at it, I'm going to get a good 8 hours. And that's going to last me long enough to get from point A to point Z and handle everything in between.
Solid. And I'll say the same thing Lawrence just said to me. Spot on. What else can I say? That was absolutely perfect.
My two favorite words.
Spot on and absolutely perfect. I think those are my four favorite words right there because they really do describe our ecosystem. Now, team, before we close out, I know you all are thinking we haven't given much love to the A12 or maybe even the A32 5G when we're discussing some of these more mass tier rather than mid tier focused devices. So I want to tie us back here to the LG K51 and the LG K31. Of course, we've been seeing the K series out there. And with LG's exit, now that we've talked about all these features and benefits, we have a very similar story that we can really layer into these conversations. The LG K51 has an older 600 series Snapdragon processor compared to some of the tech that we have with MediaTek actually in the A32 5G and the A12 5G. Now, these processors are from another brand, another manufacturer called MediaTek, but they are immensely powerful and they're designed to be really in this ecosystem of devices that are mass tier with great resolutions, great cameras, and great battery life considering the price point. And the A51 and the A71 from previous generation also had similar types of processors out there. And of course, this generation, we have taken a step forward and adopted Snapdragon, but we still have MediaTek on the A12 and the A32 5G. Now, moving into the K51's internal storage, it's going to be very similar with 64 gigabytes versus the 32 gigabytes that we have with the A12. Of course, you can expand it, but the A32 5G still has 128 gigabytes of internal storage, and both the A32 and the A12 have 5 lenses compared to 4 on the LG K51 and 3 on the LG K31. So right away, team, we're already having those gears turn in our heads. We're seeing more cameras for more situations to take pictures of. We're seeing higher resolution displays as well, moving from HD plus to our HD plus display with 90 hertz, and also our Infinity V display design, which is just second to none. And even the LG K31 doesn't quite hit that HD plus display. It only has an HD display. So rest assured, team, we just really need to look at these tech specs, understand what the competitor had in the case of LG, and what the competitor has in the case of Pixel and OnePlus, and truly understand how we can position our device benefits, and we will be absolutely set up for success. Now, before we close out, Lawrence, I'm going to pass it back to you to talk a little bit about some of the documents that we have and some of the tools and resources that we can really use in addition to this podcast to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a couple. The A to Z profile pin to pin is a document that we created that really breaks up the camera performance, stuff like that, and makes it digestible for everybody in the field to really follow along and make all of this very, very simplistic and very easy to use in the field. But what you're also going to find on MCS is we have separate documents. We have a pin to pin A series and Moto. We also have a let's see, pin to pin that covers some of the S series with the OnePlus 9 and other devices. But basically, the device that we're focusing on today was the A series comparison chart. And the A to Z pin to pin profile were really the two main documents we use today, and those you can find on MCS.
Perfect, Lawrence. Thank you so much for that. Of course, we need to continue to use the resources that we have at our disposal. So, again, A lot of great content is available to you. It is up to you to utilize it and be the absolute best that you can be. And we also have a 2020 to 2021 A series comparison chart document that is on MCS. And that does a direct comparison between last generation's A series to 2021's A series. And we also tie back into some of those Android devices and even Apple devices that we have discussed in the past. So, a great tool, a one-stop shop, and of course it is a fancy one pager, which I know we all love to utilize during our in-person and also our virtual sales calls. So with that, team, thank you so much for joining us for the third episode of the T3 podcast. We will talk to you all very soon, and of course in the next podcast we will be taking a deep dive into A series versus Motorola. Take care, team. We'll talk to you all soon.